And now for a whirlwind tour of system settings in Clarity. There are a whole bunch of things that you can control in terms of system settings. They are in various places within the administration module. So I'm just going to kind of meander through them as they occur to me and as I happen to spot them on the menu. So I'll start with the administration module, general settings, system options. These are mostly irrelevant to our environment because we are a single sign-on Clarity installation. So things like password options and system timeouts really don't apply because those are already controlled by the single sign-on portal. It's really kind of meaningless. Down below, we've got document manager options. In a previous video, I mentioned that we might want to investigate using the document manager associated with projects. If we do, that introduces a whole realm of stuff around project participants and permission settings, but you can control some of that here. For example, allowing non-participants to access documents. So if you want that, you can say yes, and then people who are not specifically a participant on a project, if they have read access to the project, they can see the project documents anyway. A couple of other things to note down below. Much of this is server-side administration settings. The company name, AstraZeneca, probably will never get changed, but I noticed it does look like there is a errant backs quote there. I'm not sure why. I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone and not save, just because I'm not sure if somebody put it there for a reason. But the maximum rows to export to Excel, there used to be in system maximum that was unavoidable, but we have set this to no limit. And I don't see any reason to change that. You're just going to cut people off from exporting large things. But if performance is an issue, you could reintroduce that. So like I say, most of this is pretty irrelevant for our purposes. The next thing I'm going to look at is under project management. There are a number of things that are quite important. One is timesheet options. There are some areas of AstraZeneca that are using Clarity for timesheeting, and this defines the default layout of a timesheet. And if you're not already aware, a timesheet is not an object in Clarity. It's a different beast. It has its own data structure in the database that is not very conducive to easily extracting it. And by extension, it's not easy to configure it for how you view it. So you do have a little bit of control over the data or the timesheet fields and the layout of it. The only provision for adding your own values are two customizable values, user value 1 and user value 2. The user value 1 field we've already commandeered for use by the EDRT team, so please don't use it for anything different without talking with them first. And you can see down below here that the lookup that's used for that data value, because it is of type lookup, is time entry user lookup field 1. And the database names that the EDRT team uses are the values in this lookup field. So that's that one. Don't mess with it without talking with them. Other things to note here: disable indirect time entries. Apologies for my ringing phone and my vocal caller ID. The indirect time entries are a throwback to a previous version of Clarity. And what else do I need to know? Display unit is in hours with 2 decimal places, and auto-populate is on, even though it doesn't work terribly well. So that's pretty much your timesheet options. The only ones really of any interest are if you want to add an additional value to everybody's timesheet, you can do it here. Let's see, time reporting periods. This is a significant thing, but it's fortunately pretty automatic. So you cannot enter a timesheet for a time period that isn't open. First it has to be defined, and then it has to be open. So timesheets are predefined way out into the future. You can see all of these are open. If I change this to all, then I can see all the timesheets that are defined in the system. They go back to 2013 and they go forward as far as the end of this year. But that's okay because there's a job that runs automatically that creates new time periods as needed, closes old ones, and opens future ones. So we have an automated job that automatically keeps a rolling window of open time periods. The only time that you need to worry about this is if someone needs to go enter time for an old time period. You may need to go in here, find a closed time period, and reopen it in order for someone to be able to enter their time. So if I want to reopen, September of 2013, I select it and click open. And then once I've done that, I can go back in and close it again. But that is very rare. Let's see, what else do we have? Under project management, we have settings. Most of these have to do with using Clarity for building out elaborate project plans. So if I stretch a task over 3 weeks, but it only has 8 hours of effort, the first option here is how do I load in those hours over that time period. Uniform means I'd take 8 hours and uniformly distribute it over 3 weeks. But I could do it front end, I could fix the values, I could do a contour where it starts low, builds, and then drops off like a bell curve. So I have an option for the default pattern when the number of hours doesn't match the duration of a task. First month of the quarter, first day of the week, display units, those are pretty standard and you can leave them alone. Allow posting of future timesheets. This we turned on not too many years ago because if someone's going to be out on leave, they wanted to be able to go ahead and post their timesheets, get it approved, and get it in the system. So that is allowed. If for some reason people say, no, we don't want you to be able to do that, only do timesheets that are current, not in the future, then you could turn that off. Let's see, anything else here of any particular interest? These are all allocation things, effort tasks. Reassign tasks when replacing a role. If you have a role on a project and you replace it with a resource, those all the tasks associated with that role get automatically reassigned to the resource, and that's usually a good thing. Automatically open staff members for time entry is set to never. That one I disagree with, but Christine Yates way back when said no, that's the way we want it. I think when you book a team member to a project, they should be open for time entry automatically, but they're not, so they have to be manually opened. Automatically add staff members as participants. Again, this has to do with whether we use the collaboration feature or not. Currently, this is irrelevant. And converting resources to roles when using a template. If you've got a template project that has a resource on it and you create a new project from that template, it will replace that resource with that resource's primary role so that you're not automatically, staffing a person to a new project. So that's the bulk of those. The other thing to note is over here under data administration, we have time slices. This again is something crucial for the functionality of Clarity, but is also automatically taken care of. There is a job that runs, I think it's weekly. If I look under reports and jobs and look at the schedule and look for time slicing, the time slicing job runs, actually this is every half an hour. I was wrong because it was just scheduled at 2:45 and now it's scheduled at 3:15. So this is a time slicing job. What it does is it goes in and creates and updates time slices. Time slices are defined buckets that hold values. So if you want to look forward at weekly or monthly allocations, if you want to look at a project and say, show me team member allocations for the next 6 months. There have to be buckets to accumulate that data into. So there is a monthly resource allocation curve, and that defines the buckets that you can store data in. The number of periods is 12. There are limits to this. If you try to look at allocations more than 12 months in advance, you get a problem. We have a patch in our system that I applied a year or so ago that enables us to look at more than that, but there's still a limit. So when I'm looking forward or backward in a project and I've got team members allocated for the next 3 years, I can't see the detailed allocation of those in a monthly spread. I'd have to go to yearly in order to see 3 months in advance. But again, the maintenance of this is done by that time slicing job. It runs automatically. If it ever stops running, then you're probably going to need to open a support ticket with CA and get them to help you reestablish the time slicing job. Let's see, what else is there? I will touch on that if I get time. Reporting periods. System options I looked at. Oh, risk settings I wanted to hit. If you define a risk in Clarity, you give it a probability and an impact, and then Clarity automatically computes for you the risk score, which is high, medium, or low based on the combination of those factors. This screen is where you define how those factors add up to the overall risk score. So you can see we've got very low to very high. This is non-standard, but it was insisted upon within AstraZeneca. So the combination of very low and very low leads to a low risk score, because the risk score is only based on low, medium, high. So if you need to change the way that computation is done, this is where that happens. The other thing that I will touch on in my last couple of minutes is base calendars. And I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I need to touch on before then. And I think that will do. Base calendars, every resource in the system is associated with a calendar. They have an availability, which is the number of hours per day, and then they also have a calendar, which says which days they're working. So we have several base calendars defined. The base calendar enables you to define when holidays are for a particular region. So if I look at November of 2016, let's take November of 2015, because I apparently did not update the base calendar in quite a while, 14 maybe, there we go. In the US, and this is the US based calendar, the last Thursday in November and the day after are company holidays. So in the US based calendar, I've defined those as non-work days. So if I have a resource based in the US, I associate them with the US based calendar, and that means that they are automatically scheduled to be off on those 2 days for purposes of clarity and allocations. So if I assign someone at 100% of their time, starting on November 24th and ending on November 28th of 2014, because they're associated with this calendar and this calendar has those days off, they're only available for 3 hours during that, or 3 days during that week, which is 8 times 3 is 24 hours. So at 50%, you would see them at 12 hours allocated for the week, because Clarity knows those 2 days are non-work days. So you can update an individual's calendar to add their non-work days, but you start with a base calendar that has holidays for that region. And then by putting in their personal days off, you have a very complete picture of this user's availability. And Clarity uses that when computing allocations based on percentages. So that's a whirlwind tour of system settings. Hope this helped. And now that you know this stuff, you rock.